Hello everyone, my name is Jorge Salcedo. I'm here with Mario. I wanted to congratulate Mario. He is a member of the new homeowners club, and he actually just closed his property, was it 2 weeks ago or a month ago?
On the 29th.
The 29th, October 29th.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fresh, he's still moving in, you can see the glow, he's glowing. All the stress is gone. But yeah, so thank you for coming, Mario.
Yeah,
and the purpose why I asked you to be here is because I want you to share your experience with everyone out there, first-time home buyers, in this crazy market. Just kind of share like your experience from beginning to end. And
so overall, the experience, it was exciting, I would think, right? Homeownership was something that I've been working on a very long time to be in a position to do that. With I was able to get like the down payment set up, and I was able to get I had like the income to do it, so it was super exciting and super psyched about it. But again, there's also like some stressors. There's a lot of things that go on, and so in the end, it was just a great experience. Again, working with the realtor that I worked with, working with the broker that I worked with, had an excellent experience there.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So kudos. And no, he's not paying me for that, by the way. Just letting you know. But so yeah, from the beginning, right? I first started looking, and just generally for homes, right? And I was looking in areas where I knew I could and couldn't afford, and so I started getting more realistic, and I was looking in areas like in Compton and areas in Pico. But then I started realizing that based on my income, that I probably want to be looking into a condo. And so we started that process, and it's a little bit demoralizing, like you mentioned. There's this crazy market, and you put in bids, and you don't get your bids, and you get really attached to your homes, and so I guess one point, don't get too attached to a home. It's a process.
Yeah, don't get emotional.
Yeah, don't get emotional.
It's a business transaction, yes. You fall in love with the house, but go easy on yourself because you may or may not get it, and you don't want a heartbreak. But real quick, Mario, going back to preparation, right? Mental preparation, financial preparation. As you mentioned, you decided to buy a home, so you started to save money, which is important, right? Because today, to qualify for a traditional, conventional FHA loan, you need between 3% and 5% at the minimum. You need money, not including your closing costs. And that's something that you got to think about, because actually Mario was really, really concerned with his budgeting, and props to him, because he actually had the foresight to plan and to make sure he had enough money to close. And that's where I came in and experienced, loan officer, broker, to basically, assist with that. So that was one thing I wanted to mention: preparation mentally and financially. Second thing you mentioned was buying a condo, right? Because it was a little disheartening, because everybody wants to buy a house. Yeah. Everybody wants a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, white picket fence with Fluffy the dog, the Labrador there. But the reality is, depending on where you live, it can be really expensive, especially in Southern California. And I always tell first-time home buyers that it's a first-time home that you should buy, because once your equity increases in value, your property value increases, you can then buy a house later, right? Because then you have money in your equity. You can do a cash out refi, you can sell it, you can rent it and make income from that and use it to qualify. So that's actually a smart move, because you tell me, what do you think of your condo?
I actually really like it. It worked out fine. And just to that point, I think one of the reasons I really liked the condo was because it was in a price point that I could afford. And I think that was a really important point for me. During the process, I know what I qualified for, but that's way different than what you can actually afford. How you're going to be able to handle that monthly mortgage payment.
That's true.
And in hindsight, now that I'm looking at what it's going to be, if I would have gone with what I was approved for, realistically, I don't think I would have been able to make that payment. The bank would have said it. Everyone else would have said, yeah, you're fine. But unless I want to get like super high blood pressure eating top ramen every day, it wasn't going to happen. Yeah. And again, a lot of that, you helped me with that, right? Understanding how much, what the cost would be, how to be realistic and essentially manage your expectations. And so me being a single man, that 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, it works out just fine. And so I'm glad that I'm in something, because I've been renting for so long. And that money you never get back, right? You never get it. You're paying someone else's mortgage, right? And so the fact that that I literally have a place to call mine, it's something that I can afford. it's a different feeling. It's a different feeling stepping in there knowing it's yours. And so I mean that's probably that's been the best part of it for me.
Home ownership makes a difference, right? You actually have your own castle, somewhere you can go after work, after a long day, and just relax. And do whatever you want to do in there, right? You can, paint it. You can, do whatever you want. So that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad I was part of this, experience for you. And I kind of wanted to go back. You decided to buy a home. You saved money. What was the first step that you took to actually start looking at homes or start looking into the, lending process? What did you do first? Was it simultaneous?
Well, I did. So the first thing I did, so when I aligned my income and basically having an income to afford the payment and then having saved the down payment, right? Like I was already looking at Zillow, like I was looking at Redfin, I was doing my research. So do research. Like there's one thing, like if there's the top 3 mantras, like in every capacity of the home buying process, whether it be the financing part, whether it be shopping the home, do your research. It's always, I think, but we'll get back to that because I'll get to that point. But the first thing I started looking, I did my own shopping, right? Looking at certain places. My initial plan was actually to go and work with the listing agents, right? Because and so I don't know how we
perfect segue.
Yeah. So I wanted to work with the listing agent because they can, although they're listing the place, they can sell it too. And so if they have, as long as the seller I think is in agreement, they can do that. And so if there's a place you really like, or there's or you want to be competitive, they'll want your business. And unfortunately, due to COVID, I think it was tougher for me. They wanted me to have an agent when I was viewing the homes. It kind of changed afterward. But so that because of that, I had a friend that recommended their sibling, and so I went with them. And it was a good agent, great agent. And so I still did my research. That person was still doing. They were showing me homes based on what interests me. Half of the homes we were looking at were the same ones because I like this. So I knew we were connecting in terms of him understanding what I'm looking for. Yeah. So we went through that process. Unfortunately, I think there was maybe 3 or 4 of them. I put in an offer. The bid didn't go through. And also I did get pre-qualified for that. With a lender, and so having that, so that was I think really important because no seller is going to take you serious without a pre-approval. Anyway, like having that was clutch. And so when I did my research, I was one of the first things I looked up. Like you need to have a pre-approval. You're not going to be competitive with anyone unless you show up with a suitcase of cash.
Exactly right.
So getting to that process, we found we were actually I looked up this property that we had now. It fit my needs, and I had noticed that it was in and out of escrow for like I think it was like twice. And so I was like, oh, okay, so what's going on? Either this place is messed up, or there's just the business transactions that's it's not working out. And so that again was part of the research part, right? Me knowing that, I'm like, okay, let's see. Most people are asking 5-10% above asking price. I'm like, but they kind of need to sell this. And talking to the listing agent, the folks had kind of already moved out. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna see if I offer them asking price and see if they take it, right? And it's a place that I liked. Had the 2 bedrooms, the 1.5 bath, had 2 parking spots, and lo and behold, they did. Like I was like, okay, great.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I wasn't expecting that. Realistically, I know my agent helped out with that negotiation as well, and so there's a whole nother part post offer, right? Escrow and dealing with signing papers and all that stuff. It's crazy. Like even like just the process itself. There's so many people involved that it's you're gonna be hearing multiple different sets of information from different folks. Yeah. But when you work working with you, you coordinated that extremely well. Thank you. So that was really, really cool. And so at the end of it, we were able to close. You said you usually do 30 days. We closed before that. We closed before 30 days.
It was 3 weeks.
3 weeks, and then we didn't even get any letters of you need to perform. We did basically everything quick. And I think an important part of that was just the communication that we had. I will say this, and without saying names, the previous lender that I worked with, the first time I talked to Jorge, and again, this is the whole research part and connecting with folks part. I actually was introduced to Jorge by a family member of mine, and doing that research, the fact that and talking to folks that have been through the actual process, I came across Jorge, and I got a significantly better deal on my loan than with the lender I was going with before.
And to Mario's point, he was shopping, right? That's actually something that I like to throw out there, and I tell my my family members and friends, shopping is healthy. You want to get multiple offers, not offers, but I guess estimates, or just see how they work, right?
Yeah.
Like to your point, we are competing, right? Mortgage companies, but at the end of the day, it's not just about price, right? Even though it is important, it was very important to him, very important to him, but also service, right? Also communication, right? You want people to, communicate, and that's very important because he mentioned earlier, we're able to close quickly, right? We're hoping to close even faster, right? But there's a lot of things that go on in a transaction. There's documents that I need from you, documents that I need from escrow, from the appraiser, from the, you name it. There's so many people involved, so many stakeholders that it does, prolong things, right? And elongate the process. But we were able to close in time. There was no notice to performs, right? A lot of times you get that when the loan officer, mortgage company you're working with isn't communicating correctly with everybody, right? Be transparent. This is what's going on. We did our job. Now it's up to you to, do what you have to do. But if you can't, what can I do to help? Right? So that's something that happened. A few speed bumps, with escrow and stuff like that. But we were able to help and say, hey, what do we need to do to get this done? Because Mario needs to move in, and his cats need a home. So
yeah, just mention the cats.
The cats.
They're awesome.
Yeah. So we mentioned shopping. You did work with another broker, and you gave me the opportunity. You entrusted me with the opportunity to see what I can do for you, and I was able to. So that's one thing. Another thing you mentioned too is negotiation, right? Buying a home in this market, a lot of times. And he also mentioned something else. He said initially he wanted to work with a listing agent, right? A lot of times that's kind of a blurry situation because for those who don't know, when you work with a listing agent is the person that actually is representing the seller in the transaction, right? So sometimes when the seller's agent represents the buyer, sometimes a little conflict of interest. I always like to say, get someone that's going to fight for you. So that's what he did. He got a realtor to step in and actually, assist. But Mario did a lot of the negotiations himself. He was very, very assertive, which I think is very important. You want to trust your realtor, right? His experience and what he tells you, what he shares, what he thinks, going into the comparables, what this home should go for. But it doesn't hurt, right? To be a little bit more, I don't want to say aggressive, but definitely be more, I said assertive, but definitely, say what you think the property's worth and not be afraid to offer what you think it's worth, right? And how did that work out?
It worked out great, right? Because the worst thing that can happen is they say, no. Okay, you move on to another house, right? And so, granted, I had that kind of leeway just because I don't have a family and kids. I didn't really have to I gotta get him a house. So, but yeah, and I think what ended up happening when I was being assertive and kind of initiating a lot of the conversations, it actually helped the communication between the realtor and I, because I could, when doing that research and being assertive, we spoke the same language to a sense, right? Okay, this is what I'm looking at. For example, I got very familiar with contingencies. Okay, I needed to have these contingencies. Most places, when you bought them, but when you offer, most places said, okay, it's as is. In this market, literally, I think that property was as is as well, if I'm not mistaken. They listed it as is, no contingencies. And I knew that I couldn't do, right? I could not move forward with any negotiation without my contingencies, particularly for financial reasons.
Yeah, loan contingency, for those who don't know, there's the inspection, there's the loan, and there's the appraisal contingencies, which I always say keep to protect your deposit. But to your point, you were saying, as is initially, right? Because
it saved me. It literally saved me. That if I would have moved forward, so in my situation, we offered asking, and originally it was recommended not only by my agent but basically everyone's like, hey, you just got to go as is because the market's so hot right now. Someone else is going to take it. One, doing the research that two people tried and it was either escrow test. I'm like, not so much. Maybe not with this property. Reason being, again, those contingencies. When I made the offer, it was at 465. 465.
Yeah.
So I wanted to keep my appraisal contingency because one, and I know Jorge, you'll probably explain this more, but if you make an offer and it doesn't appraise for, for if it appraises for less, which a lot of them are right now, a lot of them are appraising for less. People are paying more than what the properties are worth. The bank's not going to give you that money. So it actually ended up appraising at 456.
Yeah.
If I wasn't so adamant about keeping my contingencies, I would have been on the hook for the what was it, like $9,000?
Exactly. So $465,000 was the list price.
Yeah.
And in this hot market, a lot of times you feel kind of compelled to compete and win that bid by removing your appraisal contingency. An appraisal obviously is a valuation that the lender has to do on the property to make sure when they let you borrow the money, basically is justified. The seller, they want to sell the house properly, quickly, and they want to sell it to someone who's going to remove that appraisal, meaning that no matter what the price comes back at, the valuation, you're going to pay that regardless. If you have to bring money out of pocket to make it happen, it's on you. Like you said, you're on the hook. But he kept his appraisal contingency. He fought for it. He's like, no, I want it. He did his homework. He did his research. He knew it fell out of escrow a couple of times. And he's like, no, like, I'm going to keep my appraisal contingency. I'm going to keep my loan contingency. And I'm going to make sure I get the inspection done. And guess what? It benefited him. The inspection benefited him. The appraisal contingency benefited him because he saved more money. So I'm really proud of him for doing that. There obviously were stipulations. We had to get this done quickly. I think he wanted to get done like in 15 or 16 days. and I got to throw this out there. Right? He gave me the contract like a few days after he actually opened escrow. So I was already behind the 8 ball here, and I needed to make sure I got it done quickly. But because I was able to communicate with the agent, right, we were able to close it in 3 weeks, right? No more than 3 weeks. Everybody was happy. We closed on a Friday, I think, right? On a Friday. We had the weekend. But to your point, you saved money, and I wanted you to share with everyone the appraisal contingency, how it benefited you, and also the inspection. What happened after that?
So the inspection, right? And mind you, everything was as is. So we weren't supposed to get these. So I guess one point, and I learned this one, I took a business school class, everything's a negotiation. Everything. If someone says no, obviously it's a seller's market now. So my situation may be a little unique, but it's not impossible. And so we talked about the appraisal, but the inspection contingency was, so the reason I wanted that one as well was because I I looked at it. I saw that again. It was in escrow twice, and it didn't close. I'm like, so what's wrong with the place? I don't trust it, right? I mean, it's a nice
shady as a foundation.
Yeah,
kind of, what's going on. Yeah.
So it was in a very nice spot, and Downey's super hot, and for the price, like, oh my gosh, it sounded too good to be true, and usually that tends to be the case. So I kept that contingency, and sure enough, we did the inspection. They literally told me, hey, this is like an 8 out of 10. It's great. However, this X, Y, and Z needs to be fixed. And they wrote it down and did this awesome report, and said these are things that need to be fixed. These are the major issues. There was nothing like piping, nothing terribly awful happened. However, because of that inspection, which I think ran me maybe like $350, I asked for either repairs or cash because of that. On top of it, and mind you, this is already, they're already cutting, I think, anywhere, I don't have the number in my head, but we're going from 465 to 456, right? Because the appraisal contingency, bam, that one saved me.
Yeah, $9,000, yeah. Inspection
comes along, and at the end, I spent $300 on that inspection, and I negotiated $2,500 in repairs.
$2,500 he saved in addition to the $9,000 because of the appraisal contingency. The value came in lower.
So those were big deals, and I'm thinking to myself, and Jorge, we ran the numbers. Like, if I didn't have those contingencies, I would have been negative. I would have to borrow money, like, to make the deal happen. And again, I think that just hones back on being realistic on what you can afford, doing your research, right? Like, okay, and knowing that how the appraisal contingency worked was, and knowing how the loan does and doesn't work, meaning that I'll be on the hook. They will not give you more money than what the house is worth. I had to learn that. And because of that, again, I made it a point to keep those contingencies, and in the end, it worked out well, right? And everyone ate, like I always say, everyone ate because, sure, maybe they wanted a bit higher price, but they sold the condo, right? It was already in escrow twice, so they lost money there. I have my place to live, and everyone else that did a great job of making this come together. I mean, I think we all benefited from it. But again, knowing. doing your research, and then the communication were like super key.
Mario was very hands-on with this process. And that's really good. Yeah, a lot of times borrowers are kind of, they step back, and obviously the lender and the realtor are going to do the heavy lifting for you.
Right.
But Mario definitely would call me daily or, every other day and just like, hey, what's the status? What's going on? I think I might need to get a gift from a family member for the closing costs. And a lot of times also I wanted to throw this out there, when you're buying a home, the estimates are padded. They're a little higher on purpose because, you want to basically, not have to bring out extra money. You want to bring in less money. So a lot of times the estimate is padded on purpose because, it's just the way it is. So don't freak out. It was easy for me to say. I would tell Mario, relax, you're going to be fine. You're not going to need it. But obviously he was 2 steps ahead trying to, secure and ensure that he would get the place. But luckily the cost came lower than what he anticipated. He had money in his bank, right? Now he can remodel the home a bit, do a little, fine touches here and there. So that was a benefit as well.
So I would say, and again, how beneficial it was to again do the research, connect. I think it's also important to connect with folks that have done the home buying themselves, because that's what my family relative, he's purchased multiple homes, and that's how I got in contact with Jorge. Making those connections, because again, I went from, and this is the truth, the other lender was going to offer, I think it was 15,000 and like 13,000 or 15,000 in closing costs. Let's just say that I wouldn't be able to afford that, and not only that, but I have at least 3 months, if not more, of mortgage. Like I can afford a cushion of 3 payments on my mortgage on my savings now, which to me that went above and beyond my expectations in terms of how I wanted the deal to go down. So nice. It was that was very beneficial, and I thank you for that, because I know you made that happen.
Yeah, no, definitely. So when buying a home, right, there's a lot of things that I can do to provide value, especially when it comes to saving money, right? Yes, saving dollars and cents is important. Something for home buyers out there is, if you need help with closing costs, right? Because a lot of people didn't know this, believe it or not. Sometimes buyers think that the deposit, 3% down, 5% down, is all they need, but they forget there's closing costs. That
was me.
There was like appraisal fee, right? It'd be $500-600. There is the inspection, which is actually not even part of the. Well, yeah, actually it is. The inspection was $300. He had to pay the condo association company a certain amount of money to get a questionnaire done, right? The lender wants to know the situation of the condo, if they're insured, if there are any lawsuits pending, etc. So he had to pay for that out of pocket up front. But there's things that we can do as a lender to assist with that, right? There's loan programs, right? There's conventional, there's FHA. And also you can pick the interest rate. An interest rate that you qualify for is called par, right? If you want a lower rate, you can get a lower rate, but then you have to pay money to lower that rate. It's called buying down the rate. The opposite also works, where if you want to go a little higher, you can actually get lender credit to help you with that transaction, to help you save some money. So I was able to work some magic and help him save some money, and because of that, like you said, he has space to breathe. He has a cushion of 3 months, worst case scenario, some reserves there to help him with that. So that's something that a lot of times people forget too. When you work with a professional like me, you want to have options. You want to know, and you want to feel comfortable knowing worst case scenario, what are my contingency plans, right? And that's what I was able to do, luckily. And that was exciting, right? Because when at the end it all worked out, and super happy. So yeah.
Yep, definitely. And so again, and I think another benefit is you had a lot of experience too, because you handle the broker part, right? But then there was some stuff there when you explained again those contingencies, right? And the HOA. There was things that may have been you out of like your direct purview of what would generally be in your position, but you added to that. So there was value in that as well. Just having, when you explain the contingencies, you explain on par, certain things to, in terms of the actual like negotiation process, you provided that. And again, that goes to the communication. And like I said, I wasn't getting that anywhere else. I didn't. I think when we were first talking, I'm like, hey, like I wanted to do the first gentleman the solid. I said, hey, look, like I'm gonna let him. If we go into business, I want to let him counteroffer just as a
He's talking about the other lender.
The other lender.
Yeah.
Yes. So the other lender, like, hey, just out of courtesy, I'll let him. I just want to make sure we do that.
Yeah, it was fair. It was
fair. Just based on the communication, the follow up, right? All that, like, it was. I knew within 2 days that I was gonna switch my lender or go with Jorge. And again, it's just that important.
Absolutely, man, and thank you for that vote of confidence. And me as a professional, right? It's not just a transaction, right? A lot of education falls into it, because the more I share with you, the more you're educated, the more sound decision you can make, right? Because you have to decide what rate you want, certain things, that we can, work with. But end of the day, like, that's something I do pride myself in, is I like to educate and take the time to explain stuff to you. So if you're working with a loan officer that just is kind of like, wham, bam, this is what it is, no, like, you need someone to give you options and actually talk to you about it. But once you make your decision, it's like, attack mode. Like, this is it, let's run with it, let's close this bad boy down, and let's, not look back, because we need to get this done in crazy markets.
Yeah.
So what else can we talk about, Mario? I mean, we went through in general, kind of like top to bottom, your experience from preparing yourself mentally, preparing yourself financially, getting the right team members involved, right? The right realtor, the right loan officer, mortgage company, and finally to getting your keys. What else can you share and throughout this experience do you think might be helpful for people out there who want to buy a property and accomplish what you accomplished?
So what I'll do, I'll hone in on one part about taking initiative, and why that was beneficial to me. Again, right, everyone kind of has their own responsibility when, the home buying, throughout the home buying process. The sellers, they do their thing, right? The buyers do their thing. Then you have your agents, and you have your broker. There's a lot of people. There's people you didn't even know you're paying for, and they're on the list. And okay, I didn't even meet that person. Okay, cool. Like I said, everyone eats. But I think don't be afraid to make sure you're heard, right? And to make sure that everyone is on the same page in terms of what you want and what you need. And I felt that everyone was, but I think that there was a little bit more room just for me to be more clear and concise. Like, I was told by multiple folks that I was very much involved. Like, my realtor was like, "You're really involved." It sounded like everyone's like, "Oh my gosh," and I was like, I don't know how many folks do this, but like I literally taught, like, the selling agent was there. I had a conversation with the selling agent. I asked the selling agent, like, "Hey, what's going on with this?" And again, she gave me information that sometimes you might not want to give. For example, like, the people already moved out. Okay, in my mind, oh, they're already paying somewhere else, or they already need to sell this place. Again, and then I checked out the escrow, right? It didn't go through twice. But doing that, right? I think at one point when I was just like, "Oh my gosh, what's happening?" And again, I may have gone a little overboard. I was like, I don't think there's anything illegal with what I'm about to do. I literally did a group chat, or a group text message, and put everyone on there. Literally, I think, like, everyone was on there. I'm like, "Hey, folks, I'm talking to everyone. This is what I've heard." And luckily, Jorge it was chill for him, because I already had his updates. He was keeping me updated. And I'm like, "Everyone else, where are you at? Because this is where Jorge's at. This is where I'm at. What do we need to do to get this done?" Again, that's kind of over the top, but don't be afraid to be assertive. Like, in the end, although we're working together, like, it's you who's buying the home, right? So you want to make sure you get what you want, but again, everyone is invested in it, right? Everyone wants you to buy that home. Everyone working with you wants you to buy that home. So again, honing in on that kind of being assertive. It's not gonna hurt you. It would never hurt you, unless you're like, oh, yelling at people, which you never want to do. And things that I would say is, regardless of how much income you have, it's gonna be scary no matter what. Like, I'm still like, oh my gosh, my first payment goes, I think it's in December 1st or something. I'm still like, oh my gosh. So it's okay to feel nervous. It's okay to be scared. And you may second guess yourself sometimes, just because of it being, I think it's probably one of the biggest purchases people make, like, right? Like, even cars, like, cars are 20, 30 grand. You're $500,000 we're talking about here. So it's all right. Like, but it's just make sure you lean, you'll have good folks like Jorge to lean on, and make sure if you ever need that, or you have questions, or you're unsure about things, to make sure you reach out to the folks that you're working with, right? Because I think that communication, again, makes things better for both people, for the folks trying to help you to buy a house, and you, the home buyer. So I think we covered a lot of it, but those things, just again, being assertive, and everything's gonna be okay. Like, it'll work out. If you have the right people around you, it'll work out.
Mario was very involved. He did take the initiative. I give him kudos, props, whatever you want to call it. You know, he did his own due diligence, and he got what he wanted. He's happy. He saw many homes. He submitted many offers, but in the end, he bought a home. So don't panic, guys. If you don't get your first home that you submit an offer to, it's okay. Because you never know. They can call you later and say, hey, by the way, the house fell out of escrow. You want another chance to buy it? Anything could happen at any time. Find the right team and do your own homework, and things are going to work out. So with that said, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time. I hope your future first-time homebuyers out there got something from this, little session that we had. And if you have any questions, feel free to call me or reach out to me. My name is Jorge Salcedo, Home Equity Coach. Website is below, and we'll definitely be showing you some more and sharing with you some more valuable tips on how to buy a home. And
Okay.
on that.
Awesome.